on the road again, going to have more fumbles on the road again, and that pass is going to be sailing over my head. Oh, I can't wait to get back home again. We kick a field goal for 3 points next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Hey Packers fans, this is your unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, and these are the podcasters you're looking for. One of these guys has been to the birthplace of Curly Lambeau, and the other guy, well, he has too. And now it's time to Go Pack Go with your hosts, Wayne Henderson and Troy Heinritz.
Welcome back to another edition of your Packers Fan Podcast, the show by and for fans of your 13-time NFL champion, Green Bay Packers. We want to hear from you. Give us a call. Keep this number in your speed dial and keep it handy for next week's game and every game throughout the season. It's area code 920-3PACK-GO. Again, 920-3PACK-GO, or simply visit PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback. Be part of the show. Let your voice be heard. Like on this episode, which is number 112, recorded September 20th, 2016, and all the show notes, the intel, and the analysis can be found at PackersFanPodcast.com/112.
On this episode, we're going to be sharing some lowlights and even more lowlights from the loss to the Vikings this past weekend. We're going to speculate, of course, who is to blame for that loss, and we'll talk about what the number 16 means as it relates to Jacksonville.
Ooh, I'm intrigued already. We're also going to talk injuries again, share the keys to this week's Lions game at Lambeau as a new streak begins, and we're even going to try to predict and maybe even be right for once, the outcome of the Packers-Lions matchup. I'm at Wayne Henderson, your voice acting, podcasting part owner of the Green Bay Packers.
And I'm at Troy Heinritz. Can we just skip to the Lions preview part, Wayne?
Yes, or at least let's keep the recap part of that depressing game as brief as possible.
Yuck.
Oh, man. And with that, the Packers Fan Podcast is proud to be part of the SPNT.TV Sports Podcast Network, and take us on the go with you with our free Packers Fan Podcast app for iOS and Android. Is presented by theticketking.com. Remember, you're not sold out until the king is sold out. Get Packers tickets at the best prices by visiting PackersFanPodcast.com/tickets, and you'll see all the details.
You betcha. Also become a Packers Fan Podcast Patreon supporter, especially when you want to help us out get through our misery times,
yes, please.
After this past weekend. It helps us grow the show also. You can check out all the different reward levels coming your way by visiting PackersFanPodcast.com/support. If nothing else, just go check out the site and see what we did with the reward levels. I think it's kind of cool and kind of fun when you actually see what it is and you go, that number looks familiar.
Yes.
Also, there's even that chance to go to the game with me next year. That's right. Reggie White, number 92 level, $92 for 6 months gets you a ticket to a game next season. So go over to PackersFanPodcast.com/support for all the details.
Yes, because we've got some big plans that we'd like to do with the Packers Fan Podcast, but we need your support to help bring those dreams to life. So check it out. Now, it shouldn't take us very long to go over the highlights from this past game. For me, it was Julius Peppers.
1.5 sacks. Man is on a mission. And the other 6 or so people that go around him actually had a pretty decent game too.
Yeah, the defensive 7, and there was some good in this game, and it was pretty close, and we'll dig into the details on why it wasn't a victory as we talk about the lowlights from the game.
AR-12. AR-12.
Now, when was the last time where we had Aaron Rodgers listed as one of the lowlights from the game?
I'm just kerfuffled. Is that a word?
Oh, I love that. I can't spell it, but I love hearing it.
I'm just perplexed. I mean, I could have done so many other things with my time on Sunday night. And for most of the first half, I thought we were actually going somewhere. And then we came out in the second half, and I think AR-12 had like snacks or something because throwing the ball high, throwing the ball behind receivers, hanging onto the ball too long, fumbleitis all over the field. I don't know if his quest for perfection is the issue. Like maybe he needs to be more Brett Favre-like. Just take some risks because if you take some risks, then let your teammates make some plays instead of trying to put it in the most perfect place possible every single time, because he does hold on to the ball a long time. And yes, we want him to extend the plays. He does a great job extending the plays and making something happen. But at some point, when you're counting to 7 seconds to get rid of the football, that's too long. And your offensive line are going to be upset about that because that's a lot of extra work for them.
It goes to the old adage, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So just because you can extend the plays and run all over the place doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Maybe just take the hike, throw the ball. Take the hike, throw the ball. Something, anything. And I'm sure it was just an aberration. This was just a bad game. Maybe, like I've talked in years past, maybe he was under the weather and didn't tell anybody. I don't know, but this week he really stood out. And so many.
You always go back to that. He's not feeling good crap.
Well, I'm trying to think if I can't imagine what it was. And I'm sure that he's going to be much better. I mean, obviously this was our 4th road game in a row, if you count preseason. And now we get to be home for 4 games in a row, including a bye week. And I am 100% sure it's going to be a whole different Packers.
Now, and the reason why I'm so bitter about this game is because I had this marked as a loss. This was one of my 2 from our 14-2 season prediction. And I don't mind losing, but I really struggle losing a game when it was very clear that we should have won this game hands down. There is no reason why we should have lost this game based on what I saw on the field. And I think the issues came down to the play calling again. I hate to say it, but when you have Eddie Lacy, who's on the field and he's getting over 4 yards per carry average.
Not bad.
And we don't give him the ball, and we throw the ball the entire second half with Mr. Overthrow and Mr. Fumbleitis. Put Lacy back in there. What harm is there going to be? We talked about time of possession for the entire preseason, and then we go away from the one fundamental that establishes the NFC North, and that is you run the ball and you wear down the defenses. And once again, 3rd and short, and we can't convert. And I don't understand why the receivers look like the same receivers from last year. Even when Jordy Nelson is on the field, he was targeted 11 times. 11 times. Now, maybe he's lost a step. That's fine. If you lost a step, it's okay. You got injured. It's cool. But other people have to step up. And I'm so sick of the fact that we heard Abadaris's name for the entire preseason, and we haven't seen him on the field all year. Where's Abby? Where's Ty? Why aren't we getting the tight ends into the mix more? I saw Richard Rodgers finally catch a pass for the first time this season. I don't get it. Something is broken, and I don't know how to fix it because I'm not a coach.
And I know for a fact that we do have a fair amount of listeners who especially want to see more from Ty Montgomery as well as Jared Abbrederis. And I totally agree, especially on the running plays when it looks like Eddie Lacy's doing pretty well. And all of a sudden, I don't know why we decide to stop feeding him the ball. Just stick with it. And I mean, obviously the Vikings, AP got injured during the game. Eddie Lacy, I think, could have helped us win that game. That's my personal vote, in addition to the play calling, which a lot of people have some questions about that.
And I know we're going to get flack for it, right? We're going to say, right, I'm going to go on the record right now. Very simple schedule, right? You go on the road. When you're on the road and you have a chance to tie the football game, you tie the football game. Everybody's going to be like, well, yeah, if it would have went the other way, you would have been like, McCarthy's a hero and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm telling you right now, when you were in a brand new stadium with a crowd that is hyped up that way, you tie the football game and you go back to 0-0 and you reset the game plan and you figure it out. The fact that he didn't kick that field goal and we lost by 3 is absolutely asinine. I'm sorry. You kick the field goal and tie the game when you're on the road, especially against a division opponent.
Exactly. If we were at Lambeau Field, totally different story.
Totally different story. Especially, and this is the thing, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just so passionate about it because when you have your offense, who has not been that great in the game so far, take the points when you can get the points. Because your defense, your front 7 has been saving your bacon the entire time. Rely on your defense to get you the ball back, and then maybe your offense can get you close enough to get a Mason Crosby 64-yarder or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you on this one, Troy. It was just frustrating, especially because it came down to 3 points. And obviously, we love our Green Bay Packers. We're not going all jump off the bandwagon and all of that nonsense. We know the Packers are going to turn things around, to, at least to a certain extent. Myself, I believe we're going to turn it all the way around. But just this game, it was just a major head scratcher. And more than that, for me, I got my first sunburn in about 5 or 6 years. And I watched the second half of the game with aloe vera lotion drenched all over my arms and neck, just watching going, oh my goodness.
I thought it was because you were on fire from how angry you were at the play calling, so you had to cool yourself off.
It could have been that as well. Maybe I caused my own sunburns from within.
And I love how you say turn around. I mean, that is a perfect setup for fundamentals. I'm sorry, but Jared Cook, when you catch the ball and you are on the correct side of the first down line on a drive that we absolutely need to sustain in order to keep in the game, and then you run back towards the quarterback to the other side of the first down marker and literally cost us the first down and the drive, that's just not acceptable in my book. These are professional football players that get paid for the game. You always turn upfield first. Right. That is the first step you take, is towards the end zone you are trying to score in. You do not turn your feet the other way. I'm sorry. It was just poor decisions on the field in this game.
Yeah, and even though this is Jared's first year with the Packers, he's been in the NFL many, many years. I don't know what was behind that, and I've been a big
He was
proponent.
In college and high school for many, many years. You always step forward, never backward, always forward.
When he was with the Rams, he had no choice but to go the other way to try to do something. But I've been a big fan of Jared Cook and how he's going to do big things. You keep hearing me say it. He's going to do big things for the Green Bay Packers this season. This was not one of those big things. I could practically hear you yelling at your TV, Troy, all the way through my earbuds on the way home, and I could just feel it.
I sent you great, awesome digital touch pictures from my new iOS 10 device.
And now that I finally updated to iOS 10, now I know what you're doing. Yeah, it looked like your hair was on fire.
Yes,
but
slightly.
We do love our Packers, and it is going to get better because obviously many of you have seen some of the things people have been throwing out there on social media going a little over the top, in my opinion.
Yes, I mean, I was close after that field goal decision. Like, I was going to jump on the Fire McCarthy bandwagon, but
I don't think we need to go that direction. I think McCarthy's going to be just fine.
We need everybody to figure out what in the heck is going on, get on the same page, and just go back to doing what we used to do, which was score a touchdown every 5 minutes, because the exact same players are on the field, if not better ones.
I agree.
Anyways, more load nights coming out of the game. Some injury news. We know that Sam Shields is still out with the concussion protocol. He's working on some stuff this week, so maybe we'll see him on Sunday. My guess is he's out at least one more game. But then Clay Matthews came out with a bum ankle once again. He was out there in the first quarter, came off the field for a few plays, went back out, then came back off again in the fourth quarter. So we'll see how Clay Matthews is day to day. Letroy Guion hurt his knee in the game. And if you're playing along at home, folks, that means we now have exactly 3 defensive tackles that can play in the game on Sunday if Letroy Guion is out. Because we have still one on suspension, and we only kept 5. So there you go. And Morgan Burnett, hamstring again. Like I just don't get it. What's up with the hamstrings?
I'm not sure, and I don't know what's up with Clay Matthews' ankle. I hope he didn't aggravate it a bit filming those commercials where he's, trying to swing around, trying to catch that fly in Aaron Rodgers' house.
Oh, no doubt, right? No doubt. Maybe you can call a State Farm agent to help him get back in the game.
Oh, my. All I can say is Sam, Clay, Letroy, Morgan, and the rest, get well soon, guys. We need you for this playoff rush that's coming our way.
I know. Isn't it sad to talk about playoffs? You lose one game and everybody's like, oh, my gosh, the season's over.
I know.
But I tell you, even the Jaguars game, we did not look good. We just did not look good on offense.
Yeah, and on that one, even though we can't chalk it all up to the fact that we were on the road and it was hot and humid and it was week 1, I still think that's a major part of it. But
Well, do you think that it's a in major part the fact that the ones didn't really play at all in the preseason? Maybe that has something to do with it.
I was going to bring that up later in the show, but I'm going to bring it up right now. I blame a lot of this on the fact that we didn't see the number ones hardly at all in the preseason. I mean, the preseason's there for a reason. Obviously, we don't want to see any injuries during the preseason, but we also need to shake off this rust before week 5, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, the good thing is that we're going to play against Detroit, and then we're going to get a bye to figure out what the hell's going on. And then we can run the table from that point forward.
All righty.
Because even if they lose to the Lions, then it would still be 14-2, and I would win.
And you would win. I mean, my dreams of an undefeated season went up in smoke, but at least I guess the pressure of going undefeated is no longer on our shoulders.
They went up in smoke like that ball that just went over your head.
Whee!
Oh, wait, is that too soon? My bad. We probably had some listener feedback on Twitter, I have to imagine.
Yes. You were helping work the Twitter while I was on the road during the game. And let's start first off. Ryan Hunter at Chosen Radar on Twitter had a lot of great comments, but one thing he wanted to do is ask a question. And so while we're on the topic, do you think Mike McCarthy is man enough or humble enough to change and redo his scheme? Because Aaron seems awfully uncomfortable.
I don't know if it's scheme. This is the part I just don't understand. Like, what is broken? Because he admitted that the running game was taken out of the play scheme or whatever during the game, and that's on him. He needs to figure out a way to work the running game into the plan more than he has in present day. And if he can do that, and maybe that's because he just didn't trust where Eddie Lacy was, and maybe he wasn't quite where coach wanted him to be, but at 4 yards of carry, you got to give him the ball, because when you do that, it opens up the passing game. So if Mike is at least man enough to say, yes, I need to get the running game involved, I'm willing to say he's got it figured out. He'll do his job. He's fine. Right. But at the same time, Mike and Aaron got to get on the same page somewhere. And it does seem that when Aaron actually runs the plays that he wants to run, when he's calling the shots, it seems to work a little bit better. Just saying.
Yeah, because maybe just different styles and a different rotation of even the passing plays. So Rodgers looks a little more comfortable, would make Ryan Hunter happy.
Yes, absolutely. What else we got from the Twitter?
Let's see. Somebody thinks that the major reason we lost was due to the Jawas that were running around that Jawa stadium. Cameron Black said, I had Rudolph in my lineup tonight. Gronk was out, and I knew he'd get targets over wide receivers in the Packers against the Packers secondary.
Good point.
Yeah, the Vikings, I mean, wow. Who was that Viking? I wasn't even sure of him before going into the game, and he was practically the MVP of the game. Oh, I forget. Doesn't matter. He's a Viking, and we're going to get revenge on him later. Also, Cameron wants us to talk about fumbles on the next episode of the Packers Fan Podcast. It killed us tonight. Oh, and then he says also the defense not being able to stop Diggs. That's what I'm thinking of. Diggs. He was like the MVP of that game.
I told you he would be the MVP. Did anybody listen to the podcast last week? I told you he was going to be the key. He was the key matchup. Someone had to protect him. And of course, with Sam Shields being out, Demarius Randall became the number one. And unfortunately, Demarius got smoked.
And this is why we are currently not tied to the Packers or the NFL in any way, but we would like to be, because then maybe we could get our thoughts heard. They could hear your coaching ideas, Troy, and take them to heart.
Just slightly. There's a reason. I tweeted it out, right? There's a reason why Diggs was on my fantasy team, because I knew he was going to get the ball the most, especially in a PPR league. That's the guy. And sure enough, he was the guy.
Basically, Troy, you benefited by the Packers losing.
Yes, I scored 140 points, but I do have Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson. So when I got the Aaron Rodgers to Jordy Nelson touchdown and the Aaron Rodgers running one in, which gets me 2 extra points, I'm a happy camper. So it all worked out in the end.
Oh, okay.
Just not for the Packers victory.
Well, still checking in with the listeners in the community on Twitter. Superfan Aaron Peterson, who's your co-host on the Blacklist Exposed podcast, which is blowing up worldwide. Aaron says 12 is looking like 6 tonight. Even the greats have off nights.
Yes. Off. It wasn't even off. It just was dark, period.
Oh, no.
Couldn't even find the light switch to turn it on.
It was so
was
bright
bad.
and purple in that stadium. It was just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
12 looks like the 6, half of a man. That's funny.
And I think Monica summed it up quite well when she said that this game is upsetting.
Couldn't tell if this podcast is any indication of how I felt on Sunday night. I've calmed down since then, if you can believe it.
And
So that, Sunday was bad.
And David commented about the fact that every Packers news analyst in the offseason said that, quote, Cook's going to be a game changer.
He was. He changed the entire game for a loss by running the wrong way on a first down catch.
Wow.
Fundamentals. There's a reason why there's fun in fundamentals, because you have more fun when you do them right.
That's right. And the fun is coming back next week.
I hope so.
I can almost know so. Things are going to get fun. It's going to be exciting. Life is going to be good yet again. We just need to get that kind of stuff out of the way. All these stinking road games. And like you even said, that this was a game that we very well could have lost. So anyways, that sums it up for Twitter, except for our weekly Twitter poll. I might as well stick to that while we're talking about Twitter. And then,
why not?
Then we've got some other news to tell you about. But in the weekly Twitter poll, Troy, we asked people, who do you blame for the loss to the Vikings? The running game, the passing game, coaching, or just the fact that we were in that new Purple Stadium's grand opening? Well,
Before you release the results,
okay.
Which one did you pick?
I picked coaching.
I picked coaching as well.
Okay, there we go. So we're on that page. But we had far more votes than just you and I. Over 60 people voted this week in the Twitter poll at Packers Fan Pod. Running game only got 5% of the votes as being the blame for the loss.
It can't be blamed. It wasn't on the field at all.
Well, I guess you could take it as the lack of a running game could have been to blame.
It's true.
36% of the respondees polled said the passing game was the reason that we lost. Only 6% said the new Purple Stadium was at fault.
That's because the purple was toned down without the people in the chairs.
Yes, though many of them were still wearing purple. And they brought back that stupid horn.
Shove that thing up someone's whatever.
If you have to have a giant horn in your stadium, or like the Buccaneers with the giant pirate ship, or like the Jaguars with a swimming pool in the end zone, come on, people, get real. This is the NFL. No gimmicks.
Or like the Panthers with their, we're going to protect this house.
No,
That was my lion roar.
That's about what it sounded like, too. Well,
it's terrible.
If you're doing math in your head, you figured out that the winner in the poll for who to blame for the loss to the Vikings, 53% of the folks say coaching.
Yes. Kick the field goal. Dear Lord Almighty, Lombardi, please. On the road against a division opponent, you kick the field goal.
Yep. We could have had an overtime game, which would have been very stressful, but,
Hey, then there would have been a spark, and it would have been a new game, and we could have figured it out, and we could have done something. But
Exactly.
All right.
What was some of the other news that you found around the area this week?
Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars petitioned the NFL for the bad officiating that apparently happened in their game against the Packers. And after their petition, the league actually did note that there were 16 missed calls during the game that would have actually favored the Jacksonville Jaguars, including one that would have made the final fourth down play a first down from the 9-yard line. I mean, it's one thing if you're going to complain about losing, but I mean, the only thing that this does is actually help the officials get better, because the loss is still a loss. The Packers still win. Hey, yeah, 1-0, baby. Now 1-1, unfortunately.
Well,
but yeah, I found this interesting because in this game specifically, we talked a lot last year about the definition of pass interference.
Yes, we did. We broke it down.
There wasn't a single Vikings cornerback that turned around and looked at the ball. I mean, there were a lot of yellow flags thrown in our favor, but there should have been a heck of a lot more that weren't. The officiating is still, I think, a little bit under the weather when it comes to their preparation for the season.
Yeah, I think they need to re-review, like you did last season here on the podcast, what the definition of pass interference is.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and after
Indeed.
this week 2 loss where the Jacksonville Jaguars were demolished, are they petitioning for even more bad officiating things? What are they hoping to get the game overturned? Or
yeah, I have no idea. No idea. I mean, yes, you're going to submit stuff to the office. It's like, hey, can you take a look at this one? Maybe, one or two. 16, that's a bad officiating crew. I hope there's some, bonuses taken away or something. I don't know. But all in continuous improvement, right? Everybody needs to improve on their game, even if you're great.
There you go.
So look at Ed Hockley, man. He's still lifting weights.
He is.
Those guns.
And every single time I see him, I just remember him at the Jay and Jack Lost event, and he was dressed up as Jacob from Lost.
That's awesome.
But I will always see him as Jacob from Lost.
Wow. All right. Well, other news, a roster spot is open, and the Packers are looking to beef up the running game. So recently released CJ Spiller from the Saints swung through town for a look-see. Now, the Packers look at a lot of people and don't sign many of them, but Spiller at one point was a big name for the Bills before his knee surgery. So could he be a late Forte type player for the Packers? We'll have to see what happens.
Do you think even if things worked out and they signed him, he'd be any improvement? I still don't think he'd be as good as having Lacey and Starks, who know the system and are doing pretty well, in my opinion, if we just give him the ball more.
I mean, I know we picked on Hunter from Twitter, right, Ryan, about the whole Starks thing, about him being the big yards from scrimmage last year, but I haven't seen Starks do anything this year so far. And our third string running back, I can't even remember his name. That's how much of inefficient he is. So
I know.
Yeah, why not bring somebody in?
Because the guy we wanted to be our number 3 running back is injured and apparently out for the whole year. Johnny Rocket Crockett, we miss you.
Oh well.
So don't be surprised if you see CJ sign with the Packers.
It would be interesting. It would definitely be interesting. So with that, NFC North notes, the Vikes are again the NFC North leaders. We'll figure that out. But we did take out AP, so meniscus, sorry, bud. Getting old, it happens.
Get well soon, AP, but in either event, like even last year, the Vikings somehow won the division ahead of us, but we lasted longer in the playoffs, so take that. The Lions are 1-1, and
I mean, and that's how scary this is. This game is a big game this week because we lose this game and we drop to 3rd place just like that. No.
We are not losing this game.
Divots, and make sure all the field divots are filled up. We're not losing on a field goal.
All I know is the Packers might be 1-1, but it is so good to finally be home for well over a month.
Yes, and the Bears we don't have to worry about anytime soon.
Not this season. Oh my goodness! Did you watch any? I watched the game last night up until like the final 5 minutes, just because there was nothing else on until the game was just about over. The Bears, if you didn't hear, well, they still, and they're 0-2. Jay Cutler is being Jay Cutler, and I'm sure he's a nice guy, but his attitude just seems off, and he was sacked many times, fumbled, threw interceptions, and his O-line isn't even helping. And then, like, the defensive team captain on the sideline basically chest bumps him and starts screaming at him and giving him the evil eye. It's like there's discord on the sidelines of the Bears, and they are bad. They are. Sorry, Chicago. It's not going to turn around this season.
Not good.
They very well, even though the Niners somehow won a game, there's a chance the Bears may not win one because they're pitiful.
Wow.
Unless
predictions here, people.
Unless the Bears play the Browns sometimes this season, because on the AFC side, we got a lot of friends in Cleveland, but boy, that Browns team.
Yes.
They were already ranked, I think, number 32 out of 32 teams, and that's when they had RG3, and now they're down to their 3rd string rookie quarterback. Already indeed. Well, weather for the home game, 67 for the high, 10% chance of rain, maybe a thunderstorm. I don't understand how they can do thunderstorms because there's only a 10% chance of rain, but it could happen. But otherwise, it sounds like it's a great day for outdoor football
Can't wait to get rid of these, dome stadiums and glass stadiums and Jawa stadiums and
swimming pools in the end zone and all this crazy stuff. Let's play at a real stadium, Lambeau Field.
That's right. That's right.
Keys to the game that we should keep in mind as we watch the Packers win this one. Please win this one.
Yeah, well, don't let that loss to the terrible Titans fool you, Packers fans. Detroit had 18 points. That's right, 18 points were taken off the board due to penalties last week.
Wow.
In fact, the Lions were actually called for 17 penalties, which matches the most penalties in a game for the Lions since 1950. Wow. So they are bad in the penalty department last week. Being that we are finally at home, I say let that hard count return. That's what we need to get.
Yes, even though I know there's people that think the hard count is basically a way around instead of just playing great. But I say you do what you can, and if a team's dumb enough to fall for the hard count when they know it's coming, do it.
Yes. Now, be careful, though. Matthew Stafford, he's on fire. Yes, no reason to see that end because in 9 games before last week's, he had 22 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. His completion percentage versus the Colts was an unheard of 79.5%. That's not the QB rating, Wayne. That's completion percentage.
Oh, my.
That's the best in the NFL that week against the Colts. And over a 9-game stretch prior to the Titans game, it's 71.1% for his completion rate. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
And get this, last week was his first interception in 5 games. So Matthew Stafford right now is hot.
Well, we need to keep an eye on that then, that's for sure. And I had a question. You talked about his touchdowns. I'm here in Southern California, and there's a lot of Los Angeles Rams fans around me, and they are curious as to what a touchdown is. Hasn't been one yet this year.
So soon. Oh, man. Points off turnovers and field position will win this game. The Detroit offensive line is better than last year, but is still a colander of epic proportions. If our guys will be able to get through those gaps, and that front 7 has been doing a fantastic job so far, get those sacks, get a fumble, we should be able to get 1 to return for 6 in this game. And the Packers will be facing off against an inexperienced tight end in Brandon Pettigrew, being still on the PUP. So Andrew Quarless, yes, that Andrew Quarless, he was released from the team like literally Monday, I believe, this week from the Lions. Apparently Detroit really liked what they saw out of Kahari Lee last game. And so now Kahari Lee will be the starter at tight end because I didn't want to deal with Quarless's off-field issues.
Wow.
Yes, and also look for more gameplay uncertainty as running back Amir Abdullah is a long shot to play this week, which means that Theo Riddick will start at running back and rookie Dwayne Washington will see an expanded role as the backup. Washington did have 31 yards on 4 carries on Sunday and serves as the Lions' primary kick returner and short yardage back. So not being able to game plan for who's coming out of the backfield also presents a little bit of a challenge, much like one Sam Bradford did for the Packers on Sunday.
That is definitely a key to the game. I will have my eyes peeled to see how that shakes out.
So I guess the dope sheet is out because we are close to Sunday once again.
Yes, the official Green Bay Packers dope sheet, which we will have linked direct to the very beautiful PDF they create, but we'll make it easy to find at PackersFanPodcast.com/112. The Packers return to Lambeau Field for the home opener, finally, against the Detroit Lions, and it's the first time since the strike-shortened season of 1982 that the Packers have not played a game in Green Bay until Week 3. So this is definitely an uncommon occurrence that we don't need repeated after this season. We've been waiting patiently. And on Sunday, Green Bay will be playing the first of 4 consecutive home games over the next 5 weeks, including that Week 4 bye week. And it's the first time the Packers have played 4 consecutive home games during a single regular season since 1963. And that's when they played games 1 through 4 at home. That must have been fun to see. I mean, you'd probably get used to it, right, Troy? You'd think, oh, maybe every week's a home game.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that Milwaukee package with the gold tickets, if you get 5 in a row, you'd almost be like you were just there.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, it's Color Rush. This is the first time since 2008, Week 1 versus Minnesota and Week 2 versus Detroit, that Green Bay has played against divisional opponents in 2 of the first 3 games. So we're getting those out of the way. And week 3 is the earliest Detroit has visited Green Bay since the Lions played at Lambeau Field. Week 2, 2003, were a very fortuitous ending. The Packers won 31-6, Troy.
Fortune telling right there. Fortune telling.
I like that score. I don't even know if I could predict one that awesome.
No.
I might give it a shot, though. And, of course, the Detroit Lions coach Jim Caldwell is in his 3rd year as the Lions coach. He's the 23rd head coach the Lions have ever had. And Jim Caldwell, he coached Indianapolis to 14 wins. And remember, an appearance in Super Bowl XLIV. I don't know my Roman numerals. And that was in his first season as the head coach of the Colts back in 2009. So he's known some success in his time and some notable connections. Packers linebacker Nick Perry is from Detroit. Packers guard TJ Lang is from Birmingham, Michigan, and attended Eastern Michigan. So we've got all these Michigan guys coming on over. And Green Bay wide receiver Jeff Janis played at Saginaw Valley State and grew up in, is it pronounced Tawas City, Michigan? And Detroit head coach Jim Caldwell was inducted into the, you're going to have to help me with the Wisconsin names, Troy, Beloit?
You got it.
Oh, Beloit, Wisconsin Memorial High School Hall of Fame in 2011. And he's also inducted into the Wisconsin Football Coaches Hall of Fame in 2013. So it's interesting that Caldwell has so much of a Wisconsin background and Janis, Lang, and Perry have a lot of Michigan background.
Must be why Caldwell finally figured out a way to beat us on Wisconsin soil.
Finally, after many, many decades. But the new streak has begun, not to mention that great game, that horrible game last year. Until the very last play of the game, we were losing the whole game till that Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary as time ran out, and we win after time already ran out. That just brings a smile to my face because that game was as ugly as this Vikings game till that last play. So find that and all the other juicy details on the Packers dope sheet. Again, we'll link to it at PackersFanPodcast.com/112. Now, Troy, we weren't too spot on with our wild and crazy game predictions last week.
No, we were not. We were not at all. You had looks like 11 point. No, shorter, 7 point. You were closer in the point spread. So you get to go first this week.
Even though I did predict the Packers were going to win, I really felt we would. Okay, but this week.
You've never picked them not to.
Spoilers. I am going to predict this week, though, that the Packers win. The Packers are going to beat the Lions 23-10, a 13-point or more victory. Take that, Lions.
Oh, wow. 13 points. That's asking a lot. The line right now I saw is 7.5.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And I think that's a little bit high personally. So I'm going to take the Lions to win on the gambling
Lions
side of
are going
things.
to win?
On the gambling side of things.
Oh, I don't even know how that stuff works.
Yes. So the Lions basically the Packers have to beat the Lions by 7.5 or more points.
Oh, okay.
In order for you to win for the Packers.
Roger.
So Packers are not going to do that. The Packers will score 23, as Wayne said, but the Lions will score 17 on their end of the ball, which is a 6-point difference. So the Lions win for gambling purposes, but the Packers win the game. And the over-under, just for those that are playing along at home, is 48 for this game as it stands right now.
Now, somehow you think the Lions are going to be able to get 17 points on us at Lambeau Field. That must go back to those keys to the game that you talked about earlier in the podcast.
Yes, I think that'll be one of those Matthew Stafford comes out of nowhere and gets that late fourth quarter touchdown because he is the comeback kid, it seems.
Hopefully not this week.
I hope not.
Oh, my goodness.
Need a win to get all this bad juju out of my body. It's angst.
I know.
It's angry all week long.
It was hard to even rewatch certain parts of the game from this past week. It's best just to purge it, get it out of our memory, and a victory this week would certainly do it. I say that we go back to 2003 and recreate that 31-6 Packers victory over the Lions.
That would be fun. I'd just be happy for that Kansas City game we were at last year where it was raining touchdowns in the rain.
That was wild. And that, what do they call that camera that they use for Monday Night Football that's on the wires?
Oh, yeah, the traveling cam. Yeah.
That thing was so low, I thought it was going to take us out as it zoomed over our heads.
We have the picture up on the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook page. You want to go over there to see us on TV, because we were the guys in blue.
Had to have the ponchos. If it wasn't for the rain, you could have seen our faces.
Oh, my goodness. Well, with that, show's over. Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. However, if you want to make that happen, let people know to email us at media@PackersFanPodcast.com. And don't forget to become one of those Packers Fan Podcast faithful by visiting PackersFanPodcast.com/support. You can see how you can help make the podcast even better. Please, please, please tell all of your Packers friends about the show. It would be really great, and spread the word.
And also spread the word that you can listen to the Packers Fan Podcast on the go with our free Packers Fan Podcast apps for Android and iOS, presented by theticketking.com. Don't get sold out of your next Packers game. Visit PackersFanPodcast.com/tickets for all the details, and follow us all season long, especially during the games, as well as take a look for our Monday Twitter poll at PackersFanPod. And also myself on Twitter, I'm at Wayne Henderson, and I believe you are at Troy Heinrichs.
I am at Troy Heinrichs. And be sure to also like us on the Facebook, as I mentioned. If you have a hard time finding it, just remember, PackersFanPodcast.com. Can you guess it? You got it. /Facebook
Woo!
To join the community.
And how about PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback to get in your feedback? Let your voice be heard. Keep the conversations going. We're going to be back with another, hopefully victorious talk episode next week of the Packers Fan Podcast. But until then, I just want to thank you for tuning in this week and listening to the show.
Yes, and I'll be sure to take my happy pills if you subscribe in iTunes and continue to support the podcast. Now let's take it to the Lions. Get an early claim on that division title. Get these guys moving. Let me hear you with a Go Pack Go.